Shaun Stephens-Whale. What's up, man? How are you?
Hey, Rich, doing well. Back home in Canada now, so I can safely say the whole trip is behind me now.
How was that process to get from Western Canada to Utah? Like, right. What was it like?
Yeah, so I was actually totally on the fence about whether I was going to do this race. I kept yo-yoing back and forth. With Canada right now, there's still quite a few restrictions in place, probably more so than the US. So in order to even travel back to Canada, even if you are a Canadian citizen, you have to have 2 doses, 14 days at least prior to returning. If you don't, you have to quarantine in a hotel for 3 days, and that could cost you upwards of $2,000. And so for me, it was all about whether I could get my 2 doses prior to that 14-day window. And it ended up being where I went to a drop-in clinic 2 Wednesdays ago, and they said, okay, if you're essential service traveling, we'll give you the 2nd dose. And I claimed to be an engineer traveling to Salt Lake City for a conference, and they gave me the 2nd dose.
Sweet. You made it happen. You finagled your way. It's so funny that's how this thing's working. Like, I know down here, they were saying like at risk, and like the at risk was very broad, and it wasn't like necessary. You didn't really have to provide any proof. It was like, if you were a smoker, you could get your vaccine before a non-smoker for whatever. So you just be like, yeah, I smoke. Yeah. Or if you're like, I do have asthma, and I was hoping this would come through for me in this, but I didn't necessarily didn't come to it. But people would just go and be like, oh yeah, I have asthma, and it just like didn't follow up. Be like, all right, come on in. So it kind of seems like that. I mean, if you have the doses, you got to give them out. You know?
I mean, that's how I kind of felt. I'm like, okay, I kind of get it. They were doing it structured purely by age, and so they just went down the age groups, and that's when you were eligible to get the dose. But I mean, I had buddies who were like similar age who were getting it prior to me, and I was like, you know what? They don't even really need it.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, it's helpful for herd immunity, but you don't. Like, I need it for traveling, so I'm like, there must be a way that I can get it. So fortunately, I was able to wiggle my way in, get it just in time. And then I booked a flight, had to do all the logistics and processing to actually, you have to download like an app, fill out, it's like a 10-page questionnaire. Then you have to get a antigen test here in Canada. And in the States, it's great because you can get one for free at like Walgreens. But in Canada, it costs you like $135. And they just like put a swab in your nose for a second, and you're like, okay, you're good. Like, okay.
Yeah.
Well, that was a waste of my money, but it's like you do what you have to do. You follow the system. It was an interesting experience. So if that's all I get out of it, like, whatever.
You did what you had to do. You had to come to the States to run a beast distance obstacle. I don't understand how that's not priority. They should have asked that right off the jump. Like, is this for an obstacle course race? To be like, yeah. They're like, all right, you're in.
I was definitely thinking about going that way. Yeah.
They would have clearly let you through. And also, we were just talking right before we started that you were the 11th person to cross the line, but right now in Athlinks, it has you 10th, which would award you $100, which could almost pay for your antibody test.
Yep.
So
yeah, US Canada conversion for sure.
Oh yeah, that's for sure. So congratulations. That whole thing, you're in the black for at least just the testing process of after the part. But that's about it. So let's go in and talk about the race, man. So I'm going in, you're saying, you had trained quite a bit, you putting in a lot of volume, and this was just a race you had eyed up. This is like the first possibility that you had to get on a course in quite some time. When was the last obstacle course race you had done? Was it Tahoe?
Tahoe, 2019.
Tahoe 2019, which is September 2019. So like, it's been some time.
Almost 2 years, yeah.
It's been some time. So going into it, what were some of the expectations? Were you worried about just being sharp? Like, because there's definitely a lot of people are in the same boat, but there's races happening down here now. Most of the people in the race had at least gotten one shot under their belt. What were you thinking about?
Yeah, going in, I tried not to put any expectations on myself. Personally, I find I run better when I don't have expectations anyways. I can go more by feel than by having to keep up with someone, for instance. But for this one, I definitely, in the back of my mind, I was hoping top 5. I think where my training's at, that's reasonable. I'm like, I feel like I'm really fit right now. Being dropped in like probably the best consistent mileage of my life, like lots of 100-mile, 14-hour weeks with lots of vertical. And it's just like training's been going well, feel really strong in the mountains. But unfortunately here in Squamish, we don't have a lot of altitude. So we're at sea level. You can get up to around 2,000 if you go to the top of Whistler. But I mean, that's where this race starts. And so I know everyone's kind of on the same boat with that, but and it's probably a bad mindset to be in, but I do feel like I perform relative to other people quite poorly at altitude without specific training for it. So that was always in the back of my mind. And so that's why I really didn't put the pressure of like trying to be on the podium or something in this race, because I knew like the altitude would probably be a factor.
I am also horrible at altitude, and I don't even go into the race thinking about the altitude. I get reminded mid-race. I'm like, this doesn't feel the same. Yeah. Something is not well here. Like even just on like the warm-up or something, when you start at an elevation that's that high, like right away, something is different.
You just feel it in your body. You don't feel like you're getting the oxygen. Yeah. I mean, even like I was doing some strides with Logan the day before, and like they're 20-second strides, like a bit under 3-minute K pace. And I had to like put my hands up after each stride, like trying to really get the oxygen into my lungs. Cause I was like, oh man, I'm like lactic right now. And this does not make any sense. So it's a weird feeling at altitude. I feel like every time I race there, I'm stuck in first gear. And I feel like there's so much more in me that I just can't put out there. So, do what I can, but
that's unfortunate about like the way that the championship races have been, at least in the past, where it's like, and a lot of the US National Series, at least, because there's no race in the Canadian Series that would be at altitude, right?
No, there isn't. The last 4 Spartan races I've done actually have all been at altitude.
Oh my God.
I did Whistler.
That's Whistler.
Whistler was an altitude. But all the other ones like Big Bear, Utah, and Tahoe are all altitudes. So.
Yeah. And it's just a grind. And there's a difference between, living at altitude so you can get one of those hyperbaric chambers or whatever. And like, they have like those things you can stick your head in and sleep in, or you can get like a full tent or whatever. You'll get some of the adaptation from living at altitude, but there's a difference between living at altitude and training at altitude. And like you really need to do it to really be ready for it. So it's hard. It freaking stinks. So let's just start.
Sure.
So you're thinking somewhere in that top 5, right? So leading in that first climb, do you feel like you had to be assertive right from the jump and kind of stick yourself in there? I did watch the coverage. I didn't get a ton of you. I didn't see a lot.
Yeah.
So just like, tell me what was going on that first climb.
Yeah. So the first climb was about 2 miles long. I think it gained about 1,500 feet with only some really easy obstacles thrown in there. So it was a run, really. And I know that if I'm going to do well at altitude, I can't go lactic. I got to like stay below threshold and just stay comfortable, allow my body to kind of not adapt to it, but just ease into it. And so I started easy. I started on like the 3rd row, and I was probably in like 40th place onto the first 6-foot wall.
Oh, wow. So you really let it go easy.
Yeah. And it's crazy. Those guys, like, they start fast, even for altitude. I'm like, yeah, that's definitely way too fast for me. So
it's like the Spartan way. It's just like, let's go out way too hard and just like, hope we hang on.
I know. And so I was having none of it. So I went out really easy and didn't feel that bad. Just made sure I was definitely way below threshold, like I said, and slowly eased my way up. Let's go through it. So there was like a hill after the 6-foot wall, passed a couple guys there. And then we got to a barbed wire, probably like a mile in. Yep. And I was probably sitting in like maybe somewhere between 10th and 15th at that point.
Okay.
And I I don't know. I felt like I had a really good line there, but came out of the barbed wire, and like every single person in front of me had these giant gashes on their back from the barbed wire. I was like, dude, what are you guys doing? I thought it was a pretty easy barbed wire, personally.
But there was gaps, right? Like I saw
there were gaps.
Like they would crawl and then stand up,
yeah,
and like walk. And then
I found like the left side really easy because there was like 1 or 2 barbs that were pretty low, but aside from that, you didn't even have to crawl. You could kind of just like jump underneath and stand back up, run, jump underneath. And that was my strategy, at least, and felt pretty good. But looks like, like Hosek had like 5 massive gashes on his back.
When will he learn? He got his head last year. He's got to take it easy in there. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Anyways, just continued up the first climb, and by the time I got to the top, there was this one really steep pitch, and I worked my way into 6th, right behind Atkins there.
No way.
Or into 5th, I think. Atkins was in 4th. Anyways, it was around the top 5. And I was still gaining on the guys and feeling like, okay, this is where I want to be. Still below threshold. Still feel like I got lots in the tank. And then we reached the top and started heading down. And that's where things started going a bit south for me.
So this was after Olympus or right before Olympus that you kind of worked yourself into a position that you felt
that was like right after Olympus.
Okay.
Yeah.
So okay. Did anybody have any trouble on that? I mean, it definitely changed the women's race for some people, but any trouble for any of the guys that you could tell?
I couldn't really see anyone having issues with it. I think like I still really haven't dialed in the best technique on Olympus personally. I use the cutouts. And I try and like just press my knees against the wall. I know some people like will put their feet against it, but I'm always worried my feet are going to slip out.
Yeah. I mean, it's with that with how it's pitched now, it's like hard to get your feet up onto it. So that's just like when the knees is just the one that makes the most intuitive sense. So I'll have to figure that out. So you came up and like, so you said things kind of went a little sideways on this first descent. Was it a skill thing or was it an energy thing?
I think it was mainly like a skill thing. So, like I think I'm I'm not going to say I'm a great descender, but I think at sea level on like a fire road descent or something, nothing super steep, or like not super technical bike trail, I feel like I can run with most people, but I had a bad ankle roll last year. I was wearing a pair of Hokas on like a pretty gnarly trail on the North Shore. And just went like right over on it. And it really hasn't been the same since. So I've been probably not hammering the downs as much as I should in prep for this. In addition to that, just kind of being a bit protective of that side. So the descent started on, it was a bit scrambly. Not scrambly, but like it was loose rock. Yeah. And so I just didn't want to have that ankle slip out on me. And so took it a bit easier than probably I needed to. And Woodsy and I think it might have been Josh McAdams passed me like right at the top when we started the down. And then
so it's probably put you back into like 8th.
Yeah, 7th or 8th. And then maybe 7th. And then Hosek and Forrest Bouge went by me near the Bogue. Okay.
Yeah. You make sure it's spelled Boge, but it is pronounced Bogue.
Okay. Good to know.
They caught you going down as well?
And they caught me going down as well. And that was a bit more on a bike. Like the downhill wasn't as aggressive as it was in 2019, where it was like straight down ski hills, and there was like no respite at all. It was all just like hammer. The bike trails were actually quite flowy. Right. So that was definitely much appreciated. I still wasn't performing as well as I thought I could on that, but again, I'll chalk it up to the altitude, whatever. So they go by me sitting in, I think 9th at that point. And then we started the next descent, and I kind of at that point was thinking, okay, you know what, let them go. They probably didn't gap me too much. I'll catch them all on the next long climb, because the second climb was arguably longer than the first. Took us
it's like 3 full. It was almost like 3 full miles.
Yeah, it was just like it kept going forever. So that was you know what, I should probably bring up the course map.
Yeah, I got it up here. Let me see if I could probably share it, but I don't know how much you'll see it.
Okay.
We can
If
try.
I can just get glimpses, because my memory of that course is not fantastic at the moment.
Yeah, let's see. Does this help? Can you see this at all?
Let's see if I can zoom in.
Maybe if you go full screen.
Oh yeah, there we go. Okay.
Yeah. So right now we are here is what you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah, we're just we're at the bottom of
around.
And then we're heading up to number 11, which is the Tyrolean Traverse. That's right. Yeah. So, I mean, like the Tyrolean Traverse, it's pretty basic. I feel like everyone, maybe aside from Killian, has the same technique. Just like underneath, hook the legs, and just climb up with a.
Does he go over top?
He did in Tahoe. I don't know if he always does that, but I couldn't imagine that being much quicker on this one though, because it was quite short.
Yeah, I bet it's a good for like you're like preserving energy. But like, if you're not used to doing it, you probably can waste some time.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, if you fall back over again, it's like, well, you spend all that energy flipping on top.
Right.
Is it really worth it? Yeah. So yeah, it just kind of continued upwards.
Are you solo? Is there anybody with you?
I was solo. Yeah. So I was like sitting kind of in no man's land. Just kind of trying to work my way back up to the guys in front of me. And I mean, I don't know what happened, but after the first descent, I just like my body just wouldn't get going again. And so I was still running, but I just didn't feel like I was running as quick as I was on the first climb. And so yeah, we kept heading up, and eventually I caught up to Hozik and Forrest, and then caught up to Kempson, who had, I guess, some calf cramps.
He was saying that early.
Yeah.
I was like on that first climb, I thought he had mentioned something like that.
Yeah. Anyways, so he was arguably a bit angry about that, and so we ended up like the four of us ended up kind of being like a bit of a group. We weren't necessarily side by side the whole time, but we were all sort of within eye shot for like the next 6 or 7 miles.
So that's like 7 through 10 at this point, right?
Yeah, I think 7 through 10, because one of the guys up front ended up screwing up or something. So so that was 7th through 10th. So I was coming into the top of the second climb. I gapped Kempson a bit, who was having his calf issues, and so was up in 7th. And I remember looking ahead, being like, okay, where's Woodsy? Where's the next guy? And man, they had gapped us big time.
That was a completely different race at that point.
Yeah. So unfortunately, at that point, it's just like I couldn't see anyone up there that I could even, keep in eyesight to catch. So at that point, I felt like kind of the race was between probably the four of us, to be honest, for 7th. So not top 5, but not terrible at the same time. Like I would be content with that.
That would be. Have you had a higher finish at a U.S. National Series?
No, I've done 2 10th place finishes in 2019.
Right. Okay,
but so that would have been I guess my best finish had that worked out.
Yeah.
However, that did not. So let's see, where are we now?
I think we're up over here.
We're at the top, and then we're heading back down. Yeah, cutting off.
Was this after the tables? And was there no armor, or was
we didn't have to do armor.
So after the tables, that's when you started to head down toward Bender and Twister.
Yeah, exactly. And so Bender, I think Twister was before Bender. Let's see. What does it say here? Yes. Nah. Or no, Twister was Twister then Beater. That's right. Yeah. Twister was only two scaffolding lengths, so it wasn't too bad. I mean, with the altitude, it's always like you don't want to come into it like 100% fatigued, because you need a bit of arm strength. But it was pretty straightforward. And then heading into Beater, I think Kempson. So yeah, we had been moving a lot, and so I was actually passed by Kempson, Ian, and Forrest, and so I was back in 10th, going through Beater. On the descent again? That's where you lost. On the descent again, yeah.
Shoot.
Yeah, I know. So I was a bit angry about that, because it did feel like I was getting worked hard on the descents, and but then I don't know if the ladies told you about this creek that we had to go up.
I saw it in the footage too.
Yeah. It was ridiculous. It was, I don't know. Yeah. What Mr. Hammond was thinking there, but it was just absurd. So, yeah, I guess when we talk about the Supra, I'll mention it again, but in the Beast, at least, we were like the first ones to touch it pretty much. And so there was like no line up there. It was just like, there was this little creek bed that kind of wound its way up. So it was like a 30 degree slope.
It looks steep. Yeah.
Very, very steep. And like the creek bed was like just filled with wet rocks and just like a little trickle of water running down it. And then up on the embankments to either side, it was just like thick brush that, like, you know, not great footing, had no idea what the terrain and topology was like there. So it was just, for me personally, the best bet was just to go up the creek bed. Yeah. Even though it might not have been faster, I just didn't know what the terrain was like in like that thick brush. And so, yeah, I ended up moving back up into 7th up that creek bed.
Really?
But we were all within like a throw of a rock to each other.
What was it? Were you in that point where you like, all right, I need to work this uphill because the descents aren't going great, and after this it's all descent? Or just were you able just to kind of move pretty well going up the thing?
I think probably more of the latter. Nice. I did recognize that I had to gap them if I really wanted to stay in 7th, but at the same time, like I was kind of saying before, the altitude for me, I really just felt like I was stuck in a single gear. And so, like, even if I wanted to push more, I really couldn't. So it was just like the one gear I had, and my power hike just ended up being a bit quicker than the other guys, probably because I trained a bit more on it, maybe.
Yeah.
So anyways, ended up, working my way up back to 7th up there. And then, we kind of crusted the top. There was like a pipe we had to go through.
Let's see. Oh yeah, I heard there was low crawl. It's not, the low crawl wasn't on the list.
I think it's pipe lane. I think it's 23.
No, pipe layer is that stupid one that's like the scaffolding that you kind of have to.
Oh yeah, no, that's right. Yeah, I know you're right. It's not on here. Yeah.
So at the top would be beater.
Yeah.
And box,
of course.
I think.
Of course. Yeah. You're right. Yeah. Yeah. So, anyways, like the 4 of us were like literally neck and neck at the top.
Nice. That's cool.
And so it was kind of cool having like a group. At least, you know, you're not running alone. Feels like traveling all this way. At least I get to race someone.
And they're good, all good competitors, right? Like you're running
absolutely.
With, you know, Kempson, who was 2nd in the U.S. National Series year before. Hosick was 5th at Tahoe. Forrest was 10th at Tahoe. 2018. So good athletes that you're rolling with.
Totally. Yeah. I was very happy to be in that group. Even if, you know, wanted to be further up, but and so we ended up rolling down. We all stayed pretty close. I think, man, Kempson might have been the strongest descender of the 4 of us. I think, Ian and Forrest, I felt like were staying pretty close to each other. And it was kind of like reverse of the up, I guess, which makes sense to why we were all sticking together.
Right.
And so anyways, we got to, I guess the sandbag carry was the next big obstacle that we kind of hit. And it was actually it was most of the way down the mountain by this point. Yeah,
it was almost all the way down. Are you able to stick with, are they in your vision at this point?
Yeah, like I can see them. They're still going like down the sandbag when I hit it. So the sandbag was
10th.
Yeah.
Okay.
The sandbag was quite short. Probably less than 200 meters.
Nice.
And wasn't particularly steep. But I don't know if it just, like, I haven't done a sandbag in a long time, but it felt pretty heavy.
Well,
it
it's
was
also
just awkward.
Yeah, and it's almost 12 miles into the race. And I got to ask at this point, because on the women's side, this seemed to be the very much the story of the race, is that descent was just like a war of attrition for everybody, just fighting cramps. Was it just energy and just like not necessarily having the gears, or were you fighting cramps at all?
I personally actually wasn't fighting cramps.
Nice.
And I think probably a bit because I felt like I was stuck in first gear. I wasn't ripping the down as hard as like the other guys, for sure.
But at the same time, you'd mentioned 100-mile weeks, 14 hours of running, with elevation, like typically it's going to be the training and the volume behind the training that's going to help prepare you the most. So you're probably just ready.
Yeah, I think that might have been part of it. It was pretty hot. Like I'm not surprised so many people got cramps. I think like the heat, the altitude, the terrain, it makes sense. It's like, especially when you're going over obstacles like that. I remember like some tough mudders I'd done, some like 8-hour ones where it's like, you're just going, you put a foot or leg in a weird position and it just seizes up right at cramps. So it's not surprising at all to see a lot of people get cramps in this one, especially if they weren't trained for it. But I personally wasn't dealing with that issue, fortunately, at least. The only issue I really had was just like general sense of fatigue and the inability to really push the pace. Which I guess, okay. Yeah.
And so the sandbag felt heavy. Did they gap you more?
A bit, yeah. I wasn't able to push, and the sandbag honestly wasn't that bad. It just, it's at the end of a race like that. It's going to be hurting, and so you just try and get through it as quick as you can. And it was probably maybe gapped by another 10 seconds or so on that. So didn't lose too much time, but at that point I kind of knew like, I'm gonna have to work hard if I want to catch these guys again. And so from there on, we went down one more ski slope, quite steep, bit technical, bit loose. And then we hit some pretty nice flowy bike trails, which brought us kind of into the main arena area. And I think the first obstacle in like the obstacle gauntlet. So there's literally 10 obstacles within like a half-mile radius. So it's like
so ridiculous looking on this map.
Very dense.
Yeah.
But hit I guess it was just the monkey bars, which were pretty simple.
And they changed where that was supposed to be. That was supposed to be on your way up the first climb.
Was it here?
It was supposed to be here.
Oh, funny.
Yeah, it's written as the fourth obstacle, and that's the way it was in 2019. If you remember,
that's right.
If you recall, it was like
that's right.
Right up and then up. So they just changed that. And so monkey bars, and then into like Z-wall and the whole deal.
Yeah. So I actually watched the footage afterwards, and I didn't realize that you could. So like you've got that podium step up where you have like 3 different stairs. I saw Atkins. He like ran up, jumped on top of the big podium, and then like jumped to the 3rd ring.
Yeah.
On monkey bars. I was like, oh my God, that's freaking genius. Also like super risky, but it's like, damn, that's a boss move.
It is. He's just like, he's thought of it all. He's done so many races.
I know. It's just the little things, like just saving you a couple seconds here and there, but
it really
I definitely
he does it over and over. He just never stops saving seconds.
Man, I would love to, just be able to like practice on like a rig like that for a day, just to get that comfortable on it. Cause I've definitely slipped off some wet monkey bars, and so I always do the switch grip going through it.
Same.
But I really think that if I just maybe had a bit more experience when it's dry, realize that I wasn't going to slip off, I could do like the Atkins method. But anyways, I was very impressed watching Atkins go through that. And so after that we did the bucket carry, I think was next, and they really filled the buckets up. They're pretty heavy.
They were heavy.
Heavy.
Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they're like.
I know. It's kind of like a mixed bag. You don't know what you're gonna get, but they felt pretty heavy. And again, the sandbag felt heavy. The bucket felt heavy. I probably just wasn't really prepared for the carries as much as I should have been. Maybe it was the altitude a bit, but for whatever reason, it was a bit of a struggle bus on the bucket carry as well.
And still gaining not much ground. Still in 10th.
Still in 10th. Like I saw, you can kind of see the guys after the monkey bars coming into the monkey bars as I was leaving, and I saw Shaun, Barber, and Logan were coming in as I was leaving. So I knew I had maybe like a 30 to 45 second gap on those guys, and I was like, okay. So I still got to work if I'm going to stay in the top 10 here.
Did you mean Shaun? You meant Shaun Roberts?
Shaun Roberts, yeah.
Okay.
I don't know who Shaun Barber is, but
I was like, I don't either. It's like, I was looking through some of the photos and some people I didn't recognize. I was like, maybe that's Shaun Barber, but Shaun Roberts. Okay.
Shaun Roberts there. And so after the bucket, I think Shaun had moved up to 11th right behind me, and Logan was sitting behind him, as I recall. And so going into the spear throw, I probably had like 30, maybe 20 seconds on those guys, and wasn't worried too much about the spear throw. I was like, well, you hit it or you miss it. I think being worried about hitting the spear throw is probably just going to throw you off your game more than anything.
You really can't worry about it.
So you just got to everyone's in the same boat. So, you either hit it or you don't, and you'll probably hit it. So just do it. Unfortunately, I did not hit it. That was kind of the theme on the weekend, and that was the unfortunate reason I decided to do this sprint the next day. Which, anyways,
we'll get to that.
But the great thing is, the amazing thing is, they actually had a penalty lane for the spear throw, which was the coolest thing ever. And I really think for obstacles like that, they should employ a penalty lane all the time for these big championship races, because it just makes more sense to me.
It just keeps it more standard, right? Like the burpee stuff gets to the point where it's subjective around what a burpee is.
Absolutely.
It's we don't need that. That's just cut that out.
Yeah. No, I mean, when I was doing burpees on the spear the next day, the official was yelling at me on my first couple burpees, make sure you stand up tall, jump, keep the arms above you. And I feel like my burpee technique is legit. It's not super legit, but I definitely try and keep it legit. And so it's are they going to count those or what? And I always do an extra burpee just to make sure, but you just don't know with the burpees. So standardizing it just makes more sense to me.
Yeah. And I got hit with a penalty, a big penalty one time, and I must have missed, it was enough to miss 3 or 4 burpees. I wasn't trying to miss the burpees. Yeah. I just I just counted wrong.
You actually counted wrong.
I think. I actually don't know. I just left and my place was 1. When I went to bed the next day, I woke up and saw it was 5 or 6 places lower. And I was so I didn't even really get any explanation. So I don't know if it was because of form or I just counted wrong. But either way, it's it's stupid. Just have you run a loop, have you run a lap, and then
and then imagine a championship race where the top 3 guys all do burpees and they don't count right, and the order is completely switched. How do you even how'd you justify that on the podium, right? You're changing everything. And someone races changes this too, because if, for instance, if I skip a couple burpees, maybe I get a time penalty, but maybe that keeps me in front of another guy, which demoralizes him psychologically. True. And there's all these other factors that go into it. So just
there was a time that end of, I don't remember what year it was, but it was for second or third at Tahoe, and Lindsay and Faye were both doing burpees.
That's right.
After the rig. And it was weird because Lindsay starts her burpee with a jump in her hand over her head, and she'll count, at least she would count the burpee when her chest hit the ground, where I don't know, I always hit the ground and then jump, and that's 1.
Well, it makes sense because your last jump, you got to get up anyways, so you might as well count that as the last burpee, right?
But then she'll get up and run. She doesn't do the jump. As soon as she stands, she can come out of that burpee after her chest hits the ground. She stands up and then she can just run out. And it was confusing. It's well, I guess she did the full motion 30 times.
Yeah.
But it looked like she didn't, and it just leaves things up to interpretation, which is something we definitely don't need.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So you did your penalty loop.
Yeah, I did the penalty loop. I was stoked that they had a penalty loop. Wasn't stoked that I was doing it, but it was much better than doing burpees for sure.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I did see Logan and Shaun, or Logan passed me, and then I came out of the penalty loop right in front of Shaun. But Shaun definitely had more momentum on his side than me, and so he zipped right by me. And then we came up to the A-frame cargo net, and places didn't change there. And then we hit the tire flip, I think, was after that. Yeah, that's right. And I saw Logan doing his burpees. I was like, sorry, bro. That sucks.
Yeah.
I got through the tire flip. No problem, really. However, I was watching Shaun Roberts do them, and I don't know if they got any footage of him doing it, but from what I could see, he was throwing the tire. I was like,
really?
Dude, you're a beast, man. Because it was was definitely not easy. But it wasn't like a super hard tire flip, but it wasn't like throw the tire.
Were you able to get under it, or did you do the pinch? Pinch the lug.
I did. I was able to get under it on the Beast day. On the next day, I had to kind of finagle my hand underneath. But like I was definitely able to get underneath both days.
And that's the thing with Jacksonville was a completely different thing because it was wet and it was on wet grass. But just in like this was a very dry day in Utah, and it even makes the tire flip a little bit easier in my opinion.
Yeah. I do like the tire flip. I still think like it's definitely a strength component where you can't get like a pure, like it's one of the few obstacles where like a 13 something 5,000 guy without specific training, might actually fail.
Might not get. Yeah. Like it wasn't a sure thing when Hawk Call went through.
Yeah.
You could tell it was taking a lot. And he almost like looked like it was like wobbly after it. He was like, the second time.
He was struggling with that Herc hoist, it looked like.
He had a real tough, and he's pretty small.
I think that might be the issue. Yeah. I actually found the Herc hoist very light and easy.
Really?
Personally. But I wasn't even sitting down. I was just like pulling it like this. So I don't know if the sandbags were.
Yeah.
Yeah. If the sandbags were different, but
that's the whole thing with obstacle course racing, right? It's like, he's like 1440 guy, weighs 135 pounds, but that's like, right, yeah. And like this is definitely his type of terrain, but like there should be stuff that like rewards strength.
Exactly. There's got to be the equalizers, or else like just one type of athlete's going to just dominate that. And you really want, the whole point of this is to create like a well-rounded athlete. So
totally.
I have nothing against like double sandbag carries, even though maybe I'm not stoked to see them, but I'm like, yeah, you know what? It's good. It's good because it does equalize things a bit. So
same as like the penalty loop for the spear. It's like, it's great that it's there, but it's not great to do it.
Yeah.
For the double sandbag. Yeah.
Exactly.
And then Helix, no problem.
Helix, I got to practice that one because I do not know how to go through that quickly. I don't know if some guys do, but it's like, for me, it's very methodical. They have like plexiglass on the middle slanted bars, and so you can barely squeeze your fingers in. Like if you had a big hand, you might not even be able to get your hand in there. Mm-hmm. So it does like make it a bit tricky.
Were you there with Shaun, or was it?
Shaun was already through by that point.
So you're by yourself.
Yeah, I was just by myself there.
Yeah, it's survival then.
Yeah, and I was like, spots aren't changing for me. I'm gonna end up where I am. So just get through it.
It's an interesting spot for it. And I was talking to Annie when we did our map preview, and then the race for her actually came down to Helix. Like usually it's just kind of like a speed bump along the way.
Right.
But this is the first time where it was like actually could have some weight in what would happen in the actual race. And like
it's the last real obstacle you have to do.
It is.
And it's like it's one where it can be performed at very different speeds depending on your comfort level and risk level. So
I don't hate it for the end of a race. I think it's kind of an interesting wrinkle. Instead of it being in the middle, then it's just like pipe layer, right? It's just like, let's just get through this.
Totally.
Like no one's gaining a ton, but like, because people aren't going to screw it up if they take their time, but you could screw it up if you're trying to go fast.
Yeah, if you're like trying to just like parkour jump from one to the next without even using that. I love to see, someone just like try and do it as quick as they can, like, and see what the best technique on that would be if you just wanted to like rush it. Like, could you just like step and like jump with your hands for the middle one and then like try and big step off the bell?
The way I've seen like Atkins, or maybe it was Aaron or somebody, it's like they kind of lean themselves back and pull themselves up forward and almost stand all the way up and then reach and then like kind of bring both like.
So they're like almost just using the momentum and the body's just tilting on to the next.
Yep. And they're moving their legs and arms almost at the same time to kind of get themselves through it. And then they kind of use their arms again to leverage and pull themselves up to stand up and move across. And it looked like pretty fast. Cause when I do it, I was like, all right, I'm going to get my leg over there first. And I was like, all right, let me just make sure everything's good. And then like,
exactly. Right. Yeah. You want to make sure you got like 3 points of contact at all time. And you're trying to keep nice and safe.
I think it is like, if in like rock climbing, if you're like traversing on like a rock climbing wall, I think that there's similar strategies that can be used with that, with like the counterbalance your weight and like the way you can kind of swing your leg out and around.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. That would be interesting to just like let people just get on it and let them like rip it.
I'd love, if like they opened up the course the day before to the elites. Because personally, I've always gone to to the races and tried to like sneak onto the course the day before. Usually like the volleys are not happy about that. I remember like one time when I went to like the Whistler Tough Mudder, I was actually chased for like 2 kilometers by like a couple guys in an ATV. Like, hey, stop! You're not allowed to be on the course. And I'm like outrunning them, sneaking
like
oh God.
dogs after you.
Yeah, so it kind of sucks that there's like such a negative connotation around the whole idea of like checking the course out in advance, because I think as an elite pro athlete, like that's part of my job is to know the course well and to know how to go through it effectively. And when I can't practice on it, it's like, well, I mean, am I going to do it as efficiently as I can? No, because I don't know what the best way to do it is.
And there's no, the risk reward for trying something during the race is so low. Like it's all risk, you know, there's no reward really for something like that. So there's not going to be as much innovation on these obstacles because like people just want to get through them.
No, exactly. Like it's, I was actually talking to Logan because I know Logan does American Ninja Warrior. He's like high level ninja athlete. I'm like, what if like we just lashayed the twister? We just skipped the twister altogether and we just lashayed from one bar to the next and then just like skip the whole purpose of it. And I'd love to try it.
Did you think that's possible? Like, is that distance doable?
He thinks it's possible. Like he's like, definitely a big gamble, but I mean, if you got the energy and you're at the end of the race and you race, like it would look pretty cool. I don't know. Until I tried, I don't know if I could do it, but I'd love to try.
You'll see people like Alex Walker did this in the women's race. Like she may have been 3 or 4 rungs out and then lashayed to get there. So I think that'll happen a little bit, but yeah, that'd be amazing.
I mean, they're probably they're like 10-foot gaps. Like you couldn't get a huge backswing, but if you got a good throw, I mean, a 10-foot gap isn't that crazy for a lachet. So
it's not.
No, I've done 12-foot, and I know like some of my buddies have done like 15 feet, and like people out there have done 18. So
oh my God. So I mean, like. Yeah. And of course, like this, where it's dry, that would be the place to go because it's going to be a little bit stickier to kind of grab on. Yeah, probably not going to do that like a West Virginia or something. But
no, probably not a great idea.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it would just be cool to like, I don't know, see different techniques rather than everyone like going through it the same.
I feel like you could really bust your ass if you tried to do helix fast too. Like you could probably really hurt yourself, just like because the way that it is like cross, like your head could definitely find.
I wonder like. Could you jump from one side to the other? You know, like how there's different lanes. Like, could you just like frog hop across? Like, is that allowed? I don't know.
You can't touch the top. That's all I know. Don't touch.
I know
the
that's
top.
what they said. I don't even like know what the top is though. Like, can you touch the bottom? There's like a bar right above the ground that you can walk on.
Yeah, that would be funny if you did just like walk, like you just like stepped across the crossed part and just ended up on the other side and just walked it back and forth. That would be maybe.
I don't know. I like the idea of innovation though. Yeah, like what you're saying. Just
trying stuff. Yeah. And then it's whatever, rolling mud, slip wall, dunk wall. You got through it. So you finished in 11th, but since then it looks like you're in 10th according to Athlinks.
Yeah, I guess we'll see. So I'm not holding my breath. Yeah. There's been a lot of changes on the Athlinks website. I think Atkins at first was like not even.
He wasn't
on the board. So
that happened to VJ too in Jacksonville. He wasn't on there, and I was like, "Oh my God, did something happen?" And then like he was just back on it. So overall with the Beast, like, what was the takeaway? What did you feel like you did well? What was something you feel like you could do better?
Yeah, I think with the Beast, it kind of like in some ways it went close to expectation. I knew the altitude would affect me, would affect my climbing and descending, which it did. I was happy how the first climb went in the sense that I was kind of gaining on people feeling very comfortable. And I'm like, okay, well, this proves the point that, I am climbing pretty well. And maybe if the race wasn't at altitude, things would have been a bit different. I think like for weaknesses, it shows that I should probably be practicing my downhill a bit more, even though I've got that weak ankle. I should probably maybe just try taping it up, getting more comfortable, just giving it a bit more, because I think in these races, it's really important that you run down quick, because you're going to just lose too much time if you're really gingerly putting your foot in front of the others. Yeah. And the obstacles, the carries, I guess I can work on a bit. I was actually surprised because I feel like my strength since Tahoe over the last 2 years has improved a lot, both like deadlift and just like general upper body. So I was a bit surprised with the carries, but at the same time, it's good to see what works and what doesn't. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's a good jumping off point. Like I said, it's like there's definitely a rust component for these things. It's hard to feel a race when you haven't done one in a while. So if nothing else, just a rust buster on a bigger stage, and to come away, top 10, top 11, and then being mixed up in some good competition for 3/4 of it. Can't be. I mean, you could always be happier, but all in all, seems like a fair way to start.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah.
And so let's touch on the super quick. So you came back for the super. Yeah. Was that always the plan? Because you risked so much to get here. So you're like, I'm
exactly. Yeah. When I booked my accommodation, I was coming back on Tuesday, and so I knew that I had the whole weekend available. So it just made sense to me to do it, even as long as I didn't break an ankle or something the day before, and I didn't. So I was like, okay, let's give it a go. And came to the starting line, and pretty much it was myself, Hosek, and Robert Killian. We're we had some other guys there too, but from the day before, I was like, okay, it's probably just going to be the three of us working it out. And so Hosek's a bit of a smack talker, and so before the race, he was like, yeah, if either of you guys start too fast, I'm going to throw rocks at you. I'm like, dude, no worries, man. I just want to take this nice and chill. Let's work into this. And then, Rob's on the same page, but Rob's kind of like Atkins. He likes to go out hard no matter what.
Right.
And so, Killian definitely put the hurt to us a bit at the start. But so the super course, I guess I'll say in advance, it was around 10K. I think it ended up being 600 meters, so around 2,000 feet of climbing. So still solid.
Pretty good. Yeah, that's quite a bit.
Actually, the first climb, so pretty much all the climbing was the first climb, the exact same. And the second climb was a climb up the creek bed that we were talking about before. And that was pretty much all the climbing.
So after Olympus, it cuts into that descent and goes straight to Bender, and then
second climb.
And then just a little bit of that little bit of that
and that creek bed.
Re-up creek. Got it. Yeah. You got 2,000 feet out of that.
Yeah. Yeah, about 1,500 on the first, and then another 500 or so on the creek. So.
Oh wow, that was that big, that creek.
Yeah, no, it just kept going for sure.
Yikes. All right.
Yeah.
So where are you at after the first climb?
Yeah. So the three of us kind of took off together. Rob was pushing the pace a bit, and Rob didn't have a great one the day before.
No.
So I kind of knew he was there for blood and a bit of redemption. But at the same time, I was like, well, maybe he's not in great shape right now either. And so I kind of had the idea of just sitting on Rob and then feeling the climb out, and then probably when I felt a bit better, just pushing past him, which is exactly what happened. And I think at the top of the first climb, I probably had I think Ian and Rob were running pretty close together. I probably had 30 to 45 seconds on those guys. And held. It's hard to say because I was in front of them, but I was looking back occasionally. So I think I probably had about a minute gap at the very top after the creek. And
nice.
I was actually, it was weird. I think a lot of people felt this way. I know Lindsay mentioned it as well, that a lot of people were actually feeling better the second day after the Beast. And I would actually put myself in that boat as well. I'm not sure if, kind of a kick in the ass at the altitude the day before, maybe was a super compensation of the body. It just adapted immediately.
Yeah, it's we can't have we can't have an effort like that again. Let's fix this as fast as possible.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe.
So for whatever reason, I was feeling a bit better this day, and maybe it was just the fact that it was a bit shorter. Didn't go quite as high either.
Pressure's off a little bit.
Pressure's off, yeah. So, and I always find when I can dictate the pace, the race seems to go better. Okay. I'm not.
So you're also winning. yeah.
Also winning, which helps mentally and physically maybe a bit too. And So, anyways, the uphill went really well. The creek bed, thankfully, from 10,000 people running the day before, you didn't actually have to go in the creek bed. There was a well-laid path along the side.
Oh.
And so I was looking afterwards at Strava, and both Ian and I had the fastest times at the creek bed, which was definitely not because we were necessarily going faster, but just because it was so much nicer going up that day with that path.
Oh, and also you didn't have that other 3 mile climb.
That's true too. Yeah, we were a bit fresher. Maybe
a little
arguably.
fresher. We can
We had the
argue
day
this.
before,
Yeah. That's true. All right. So everything's good. So how's the descent then?
The descent wasn't terrible. Again, it was, and it's amazing what like 5,000 people running on one path will do, because it was definitely like it almost looked like a trail now. There's like rocks. There's like a clear like dirt path with like rocks built up around it.
Right.
It's like,
right.
I don't know if someone did that on purpose or if it was just like that, but I'm like, man, this is really nice.
And like you'd imagine you have a lot of open waivers walking and probably just kicking rocks out of the way as they're like walking through, you know, because there's probably a lot of people walking that descent that day before. Yeah.
So the descent was beautiful compared to the day before. And I was feeling better. So I didn't actually lose too much ground. I think Ian was making up a bit of time on me because he said he failed beater, actually.
Really?
Yeah. There was still a penalty loop on beater, so I don't think it cost him that much time. But
failed beater.
Yeah, I think what happened is he said he just he got like a bit overconfident. He
just
thought he
missed the bell.
Just missed the bell. Like he was right there and he just like swing and a miss. So
that happens.
Yeah, it happens. And so yeah, by the time we got to the sandbag, I probably had 45 seconds on those guys. And fortunately, I guess from everyone abusing the sandbags, they were quite a bit lighter.
Nice.
The day before. They were like throw on your back and run with, pretty much. And so really easy to run down and then back up with the sandbags. And I was just throwing my sandbag back into the pit when Ian and Rob were starting their sandbag carry.
Oh, wow.
But it was a lot quicker. It was like well under a minute, the sandbag carry at this point. So
got it.
Yeah. And then just continued right down into the festival area and was probably holding like a 30 to 45 second lead on Ian going into the bucket. Lost maybe a bit of ground on that because the bucket unfortunately wasn't leaking at all. I'll make sure to bring my like a drill or something next time to put some holes in it. But
get a little advantage there. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe make a little marking, like an X marks the right one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, probably maybe 25 seconds was my advantage at spear. And I was confident. I was like, okay, there's no way I can miss 2 spears in a row. So found a good lane. So the spear throw is in Utah slightly higher than you're throwing from.
Right. It's uphill.
You're throwing uphill. Yeah. So you got to put a bit more force into it. But like aside from that, it's a pretty basic throw. So the day before I had gone like way to the right. So I'm like, okay, just make sure, you aim nice and center. And I actually ended up going with one lane, then picking another lane afterwards because I didn't like the look of it. and
something's not right with this one. I gotta.
Yeah, it was giving me some bad vibes. So no, not my lane. And went for another one, threw it, and I just like skimmed the right side. And the frustrating thing is like there was a woman. No, I think this was in the sprint actually. In the sprint, a woman next to me threw it and she like just skimmed on the right side and it stuck. I'm like, unbelievable. That was exactly my super throw. Yeah, my super throw.
It just went through. It just like hit and just kind of.
It just like hit and just didn't go in. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, anyways, ended up doing burpees because there was no penalty lane.
Really? They just had burpees the next day. Huh.
I had burpees the next day. Yeah. So I don't know what inspired that change, but it definitely costed me probably a bit of money. So yeah, threw down 30 burpees as quickly as I could. And by the time I was done, both Ian and Rob had passed me. And so I was just kind of sitting again for third.
So another $100.
Yep.
So then you did the sprint for some reason.
Yes, that was not part of the plan. I was not going to do the sprint. But
so you line up.
Yeah, Ian convinced me to do the sprint because I was like, I'm so beat after this, and Ian was like, "Hey man, it's just gonna be the 3 of us again. You'll definitely make some money." It's like, and you'll get redemption at the spear. Okay,
oh my,
fair enough. I definitely was like that spear once.
And then like I just pulled the results now, and then it's like a stacked field.
And then everyone decides to show up for it. I know. It's like, okay, well, clearly this was not part of the plan. but at the same time, I'm like, okay, well, at least I can hit the spear this time. If
So
that's the only thing,
let's just start at the spear. Yeah.
let's just do the spear. Can I just like skip the rest of the course? I'll just walk over to the spear.
Skip it all.
I won't even finish. I don't even care. It's just like, let me hit that spear. So yeah, it starts out pretty much just like a sprint. I don't know. It felt like a sprint. Rob, Ian, and I were just like, we were thrown off the back straight away. We were just like laughing at each other. It was brutal. So that was pretty much the whole race.
That was the race. You got to the spear and you didn't hit it. Okay, this third spear, like I feel like things are improving day to day. So it actually went in, but it just bounced out. So I don't even know. I don't know what I did wrong there. I guess I didn't throw it hard enough, but it was there. You got some work to do to get that percentage up. That's killer for your percentage.
I know.
Like, you need to hit like the next 9 to like have it like be like decent. I wonder that should be a good stat. We'll have to ask Jack Bauer about this to start tracking spear hits to see like what a legitimate spear hit percentage would be. It's probably like 90% now for like the top guys.
I'm gonna go with the gambler's fallacy here and assume that because I didn't make these 3, I'll make the next 9 for sure.
No, that makes sense. I'll put money on it. I'll bet on that.
They're stacked in my favor now. So
sounds right. Yeah. Probability the same every time, but you probably hit the hitter the most now.
Yeah, things have to even out though, right? So
yeah, I think that's right. Well, cool, man. So overall, I mean, you got some good elevation in. You got some chance to get on some obstacles. So I mean, doing the third race, I mean, is probably a bit excessive, but you did it, and it was no problem. And you made the trip worth it. What do you got next?
So this race was kind of the tester to see if it would be worth my while traveling to some of the other U.S. races. And I think based on the result, I'm going to stick with the Canadian races at least until September. We've got Red Deer.
Are you going to do Red Deer?
Yeah, definitely going to do Red Deer, and then probably hit Ontario as well.
It's only a 2.
I know it's a 2-race series, but and the borders look like they're going to open up for you guys from the States, and so
come on up because you guys have money up there now.
They might be very competitive, those ones. Yeah, we'll have to see. So it's a bit bittersweet. I'm kind of wish the borders were still locked in, but it's nice to have good competition too. So
well, I mean, like Red Deer is not really close to anything like stateside, like
no, but I mean, if you got like $2,000 or $3,000 for the win, it's like, well,
maybe, but like for anyone to realistically go there, it's like some people have to be like in the Midwest, like it's a long trip. It's gonna be a long trip for most people. Blue Mountain, however, that's almost a drive for me. Like it would be a long one, and it'd be a long one, probably like an 8-hour drive, but like I could do it. But like I could see that one bringing people out. Yeah, it's long for East Coast. East Coast long is like 3 hours, and then I'm out. 8-hour, that's a West Coast drive. It's better scenery.
Yeah, West Coast, I'm thinking I'll drive to Red Deer, and that's like a 15-hour drive. But I'm like,
you have to go over the mountains, right?
Yeah, over the mountains. But it's cool. A beautiful drive. Yeah, it's a good road trip.
I was just talking to Mick, so he'll be there, and he'll be at Blue Mountain too. I wonder who else will show out. You think people will show up to it? Like the Blue Mountain one is because you figure like Atkins might come, right? Because like, you know, but like it's really the Blue Mountain one's really close to when Telluride would be, I believe. And I think September 11th is Red Deer. I think there's some races. There's some stadium races and maybe something else. I'm not sure if there's other conflicts, but I'm not sure. But
yeah, I feel like Red Deer is a better time to bring people out than Blue Mountain, but the location, I kind of agree with you. I'm like, well, we'll have to see how many people actually choose to drive there.
It's kind of tough to get there. But if you get all the Canadians out to it, that like you guys are, I don't know what, 8 dudes, like pretty solid deep. Maybe at least 5. At least 5.
Yeah, I would say
really strong.
Yeah, at least for sure. Yeah.
Well, cool.
That would be cool.
That'd be great. Well, make sure to follow along. Make sure to tag in some socials and just keeping the progress going. But you know, I'm glad you're able to get over here, get over to race. I mean, it's nice that you're able to kind of get that done.
Yeah, no, I'm stoked that I got down there, even though it was a pain in the ass and I had to hide in a bathroom for 2 hours coming back. But it all worked out in the end. So
It's all for the story. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're good.
all for the story.
All right, man. Well, I appreciate you taking the time.
All right. Thanks for having me.